In this episode about moving to Lanzarote, I'm talking about removals, organising the removal day, what we needed to do paperwork wise, packing, how much it cost, what to take and what not to take. So why not get yourself a brew, join me for episode 2. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lanzarote. Welcome back to another sunny morning in Playa Blanca, and welcome back to the channel. This is episode 2 in a series of videos that I'm doing on moving to Spain in general and moving to Lanzarote in particular. Firstly, I've got to say thanks so much for the support, for people that have been watching. The first video I put out only a couple of days ago, and I just looked this morning and I think there's more than 1,700 views of that video, and I think another additional 100 subscribers to the channel, and some really nice and supportive comments as well. So thanks for watching. Thanks particularly for those people who've taken the trouble to comment, and thank you for the new subscribers as well. Really helps me in the channel, really supports me and encourages me to do more videos like this. So thanks once again. So the first episode left us at Coral Beach. We'd just arrived with our suitcases, nothing else. All our possessions and our furniture were somewhere on the high seas, and we were hoping to see them in the next few weeks. The first priority, of course, was for us to find a rental property, and part of the reason for that was with the visa. We had to get our TIE, our residency card, within 30 days. In order to get your residency card, you need to be signed on the empadronamiento at the town hall, and in order to get on the empadronamiento, you need to have a permanent address. So one followed on from the other. So it was pretty important that we got somewhere to live full time. I'm going to talk about that actually more in the next episode, but firstly in this episode I just wanted to take a little bit of a step back and talk about the removals process, because it's not just as simple as getting on a plane with your suitcases and moving to Spain, moving to Lanzarote. So the removal process, like anybody knows if you've moved house, is stressful, it's time consuming, it's expensive, it's all got to be arranged and all dates have got to be coordinated. So I just thought it might be useful to talk a little bit about the removal process. But anyway, we'd seen a couple of companies. One was Woodside Cargo, that are based in Fuerteventura, and a lot of people seem to have used them and recommended them. Another was Canary Ship and Store, and they're based in Lanzarote. Both well-known companies, and both well recommended. So I got on to Woodside Cargo, and they gave me a quote for a container, a 20-foot container. And I think the cost was around about €3,000 for shipping, and then there were additional costs for loading and unloading at both ends. So to be honest, I thought that you get onto these companies and they just come and do everything, but we had to arrange people to load and unload. Now they obviously had people that did that, they had the contacts, and they put us onto a loading company in the UK. I got hold of them, and we had dates that we had to sort of stick to, and unfortunately they couldn't do it at that particular day. And the guy said to me, "Oh, it's easy, you can do it yourself, you just have to put everything in the container." And really I could load it into the container, but I was a bit unsure, bearing in mind it's going to be up and down on the high seas. I was a bit unsure about doing it myself. So I had to look elsewhere. Then I spoke to a guy called Russell at Canary Ship and Store, and Russell was really helpful. He has a van and he goes backwards and forwards to the UK regularly, and you can take anything from like a box to a full load. He gave me some really good advice, and he was saying to me, why I knew by then pretty much what we were taking and how much space we would need. And he said to me, well, look again, do you really need to take all that stuff? So he gave me some good advice, and he gave me a quote of about €4,000 for a van load. But that was coming to the house, picking everything up, driving it all back. We would fill a van and driving it all back. So it was effectively a door-to-door service. But really, it turned out that the stuff that we wanted to take, it wouldn't all fit in his van. So he put us on to another guy called Kevin, and the name of his firm escapes me at the moment. But I spoke to Kevin, and he said, yeah, 20-foot container. I think he quoted €2,400, something like that. Now, I thought that he was like a company that would come in again and load everything, unload everything at the other end. But no, he was just arranging the shipping, and again, he had the contacts for loading and unloading. So I wasn't quite sure how it worked. I thought if you get a container, it was a bit like organising a skip, that they'll come and leave it in your driveway or on the roadway, and then you'd load it up, and once it was loaded, then they came back and they took it away. No, they told me the container will arrive, it will be there for a couple of hours, it will be loaded up, and then it will be shipped off to the port, and then eventually loaded onto the ship for transportation. So we really had to be, pretty well organised to make sure everything coordinated in terms of the loaders being there, the container arriving, the stuff being loaded, and then off to the dockyard. So anyway, we'd agreed that we would do it through Kevin, and he told me two things that were important. Firstly, we had to do a full inventory in both English and Spanish with values of everything that we were taking. Now, that doesn't mean to say one man's suit, one jumper, 26 CDs, one CD player. It was basically, this is a box full of, this is kitchen equipment, this is bedding, this is men's clothes, this is women's clothes, this is this box contains CDs and CD players, etc. So it was just fairly general. And he also told me to put on the second-hand value. Two things I thought about that. One is that, yes, fair enough. If you were selling something, how much was it actually worth? And probably not very much. The fact that you might have bought something for £200, how much is it actually worth now if you wanted to sell it? The other side of it is for the replacement value. If everything got lost, then you've insured the value that you've put on all the items on the inventory is a lot less than the replacement value. So I suppose you have to balance one against the other. Of course, the value of the items may affect things if you have to pay import duties, and I'll come to import duties a little bit later on. So I did a spreadsheet with an inventory in English and Spanish of, I think we had about 120, 130 packing boxes, something like that. So I I'd packed everything myself. Of course, you can get companies who'll come in and do everything, and we did get a couple of quotes from companies who said they would come in, they would pack everything, do the inventories, do all the necessary paperwork, and they were talking about £5,000–6,000, something like that. So so I decided that we could pack ourselves. So we bought loads of packing materials, tape, bubble wrap, tape that said fragile items, all kinds of things like that. And we started packing up items fairly early, really. We also started to dispose of things that we didn't want. Sold quite a few things on eBay, on the usual platforms, and some things we took to charity shops. Again, they were just getting back to opening after COVID, so in one way they were desperate for new things. In another way, not all the charity shops were open, so we sort of, well, one charity shop in particular, we virtually stocked the whole shop for them with lots of things. Advertised some furniture on various sites and disposed of that. So again, going back to what Russell said, what do you want to take and what do you want to leave? Well, we had lots of personal possessions that we wanted to keep with us, and whilst we were heading for a fresh start and new house, new furniture, we still wanted to take some things with us. At first, I didn't know how big a 20-foot container was. It was hard to visualise. I'd got the dimensions and the sort of cubic metres off the internet of what it would be, and I tried to visualise by looking in our front room as to how much space a 20-foot container would take up, and how much stuff you could actually get into it. And I really underestimated how much you could get in. So we were getting rid of lots of stuff, and in hindsight, we got rid of stuff that really we could have brought with us. I sold some stuff for next to nothing. Nice dining table and chairs that we had that we sold for, I think, about €80, and I was. It was a really quality piece of furniture, so I was a bit disappointed about that, because we could have brought that with us. There were plenty of room on the container. 2 nice Italian leather sofas. Yes, we'd had them quite a few years. They would have been perfectly serviceable, really comfortable sofas, and we probably would have replaced them, but we couldn't sell them in the UK. Nobody wanted them. I mean, I've been selling them about 50 quid each. Nobody wanted them. We actually ended up giving them away. So, and one thing I've noticed here is second-hand furniture sells really well here. So even if you're not going to keep it for the future, if you if you really don't want to get rid of it and you might want to use it temporarily, you'll certainly get rid of it, no problem here. And of course, there are charity outlets here that will take it as well if you just want to get rid of it. So so that's something to consider about what you take and what you don't take. Anyway, yeah, back to removal day. The loading company had arrived around about 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a miserable wet day, 7th of July, and I mean this is one of the things, the reasons that I wanted to move. 7th of July in the UK, and it's raining, and it's miserable. They always say if it's raining, it's a good day to move, because we did live in a beautiful part of the country, and had it been a really nice day, I might have been thinking, oh well, what are we doing leaving here? This is beautiful. So maybe that was a good thing. It just meant that the movers tramping in and out of the house, it was there's like muddy footprints all over the place, and couldn't be helped. Anyway, they arrived, and the container hadn't. So I gave it an hour, and I rang Kevin, and he was chasing up the container. I said, "Oh, don't worry, it's on its way." So at 11 o'clock, it still hadn't arrived. So I got back onto him again, and he said, "Oh, I'll chase it up again." And then half an hour later, the loaders, they'd been chasing it up again, because obviously they were on a time schedule. They had another job to do in the afternoon, so they'd been on to their boss, who was chasing up the container as well. And it turned out that the driver was parked on the main road, just down the road from our house, and he was saying, "No, I can't get up to the house. It's the track's too narrow. I can't turn round." So that faces a bit of a delay. The loaders at first were saying, "Oh, maybe we'll have to shuttle things down to the main road and load the container up on the main road." But anyway, with the help of our neighbour, the container arrived at our doorstep, and the loaders started doing their job. And I have to say, they were absolutely brilliant. I think they'd done the whole job within 2 hours. And when I looked in to when everything was in, it was probably about half full, and I couldn't believe how much room there actually was in this 20-foot container. So one thing that Kevin had stressed to me is take a photograph of the container with the serial number, and take a photograph of the seal, and let me have those details. So I duly did that, and I think, as I say, after a couple of hours, that was it. The container was locked up. It was sealed, photographs taken, paperwork done, and it was off down the road to Liverpool, and we would say goodbye to our possessions and hopefully see them in a few weeks' time in Lanzarote. Now, the container took about 5 weeks to arrive in Lanzarote, and that was actually ideal for us because it just fitted in with us moving into our rented house. So one day, out of the blue, we got a phone call from Lanzarote Cargo to say that all our stuff had arrived. The container had arrived at Arrecife, and they wanted it to deliver it to our house. They mentioned about import duties, and I said, well, we shouldn't have to pay them. We're exempt because we're residents. And he told me what paperwork I had to provide so that they could sort out the waiver of the import duties. Fortunately, I'd looked up when we were in the UK before we came. I'd done all my research, and I knew what we needed to provide, so I had all the relevant paperwork. So, firstly, we needed the inventory in Spanish and English with the values, which we'd done before we set off, and we'd already provided that to the company. But I also had a copy myself. Then we needed to prove that we'd been in the UK for at least 12 months. And so we did that by using our council tax bills for, I think I kept about the last 2 or 3 years' council tax bills to show that we'd been residents in the UK. Then we had to provide proof that we'd informed the UK authorities that we'd left the UK. And you sort of think, what's that all about, and how do you do that? And then I thought, well, there's a declaration you fill in. I think it's a P85 with HMRC, the tax people in the UK, and I just filled that in online. And I said that was effectively that's notifying the tax authorities that we are no longer resident in the UK and that we're resident in Spain. And so I printed that off and used that as evidence that we'd informed the tax authorities. Then we had to provide our NIE number, which we had our NIE numbers for 20 years, from when or more than 20 years, when we previously bought our house in Spain. If you're on a visa, you get your NIE number along with your visa, so it's printed in your visa. and then we had to prove that we were residents in Spain. So we were in the process of getting our residency card, our TIE, but we had signed on the Padron because we'd got our long-term residency, our long-term rental contract. So we signed on the empadronamiento, and so we'd got that paperwork. So we provided all that to Lanzarote Cargo. They liaised with the customs. They did everything that was necessary for them to do, and sure enough, we were exempt from paying any import duties. So I think that delayed things by 2 or 3 days, and then the unloaders arrived. The container arrived. And it was a bit like deja vu. The unloading team said that the container couldn't get up the narrow streets. We've heard that story before. So this time they did actually end up shuttling the boxes and the furniture backwards and forwards. The container, the lorry with the container parked outside the urbanisation, and the unloaders unloaded the stuff in their van and then shuttled that up to the house and unloaded it into the house. So it was a bit of a long-winded process, but it was fairly easy. Unfortunately, the house we had had 3 bedrooms, so we cleared 1 bedroom out so we could use that purely for storing all our boxes. We didn't want to unpack everything whilst we're in our temporary accommodation, so we got an area where we could store stuff. One sad thing, unfortunately, I think about 10 or 12 boxes were absolutely soaking wet through when they were delivered, and somehow some water must have got into the container. So I suppose in some respects it was fortunate. It was mainly books and paperwork that were waterlogged, and we tried to dry out some of them, but some were just we just had to throw them away, which was unfortunate. One sad thing is that we had some old photographs, including our wedding album, that were damaged, and it was really upsetting. Of course, no monetary value, but a lot of sentimental value. At least things like the televisions, which were the important things, the expensive things, CD players, none of that was damaged in any way. So they all arrived safely, and pretty much everything that was breakable. And I couldn't believe it. Some of the things that arrived, like very fine prosecco glasses. I put it down to my expert packing. They all arrived safe and sound, and we've still got lots of those things now. So it was great to have all our personal possessions around us again. In particular, my guitars. I hadn't played the guitar for 5-6 weeks, so I was desperate to unpack the guitars and make sure they'd arrived safely, which of course they had, and play the guitar again. So that was good news anyway. In the next episode, I'm going to tell you about how we found our rental property, the procedure about taking up our rental property, moving in, and how we set about finding and eventually buying a property in Playa Blanca. So thanks very much once again for watching. Hope you tune into the next episode. Hope you find it of interest. Give us a like if you did, and it really helps me. So thanks very much, and nos vemos pronto.